Hey guys, finding the perfect gift for the food lover in your life is easy, thanks to Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships America's most iconic foods, straight from world-famous restaurants right to your door. So if you want to treat someone to Joe's Stone Crab from Miami, Franklin Barbecue from Texas, or desserts from famous foodies like Ina Garten or Martha Stewart, Goldbelly has you covered. Just go to goldbelly.com and for a limited time, get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's promo code GIFT.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel, and I'll be taking a solo skate with you here tonight. We are going to cover some headlines here. We've got some important injury and outjury news. We'll finish with a couple hot streaks and a cold streak. One involves a pause the pod moment. It's going to be a great episode for us. We're going to get you in and out quickly with as much information as possible. So let's just dive right into the show here. It's been a wild couple days in the NHL. We are in full bore flu season. It's definitely hitting the Ezekiel household. Unfortunately, also struck a few other players, including Elvis Merzlikins, who had to come out of the game that they ultimately lost 4-1. So not necessarily a great outcome there. But yeah, it is flu season. You got to be watching game day tweets as close as you can. A lot of interesting little moves in there. So just a piece of advice as we get started is it is a time of lineup turmoil with all of the injuries, piling up for the condensed schedule. Now we add illness in there. It's never been more important to make sure you're checking out game day tweets. But we're going to start with some exciting news with some nice outings from a couple young players. And we're going to start off with Konsta Helenius. And I know you might be saying, who the heck is Konsta Helenius? That's what I would be saying if I had a partner here who could inform me. But instead, it fell to me to find out a little bit more about this guy who made his debut on Monday against Carolina. He is a 19-year-old Finnish forward. He was picked 14th overall in 2024. Elite Prospects describes him as a tactician, playmaker, and two-way center, capable of using his body to protect the puck from bigger players and start breakouts. We didn't exactly see a ton of that today, but definitely some sharp play. He managed 2 primary assists to Noah Ostlund in the first, and then converted a nice centering pass from Peyton Krebs for his first NHL goal on a wrist shot. So that accounted for 3 points in about 4 minutes of on-ice time in the first period after Monday was a cardio session against Carolina. So a really nice outing for Helenius. It looks like, he is starting to develop a little bit, be able to show some things. I know that Derek from the Matchup Maximizer and sometimes co-host of Short Shifts has him in a dynasty league and is very happy to see him emerge from his chrysalis and get some NHL action. Noah Ostlund, we mentioned, has 2 goals and 3 assists now in 5 games since sitting out on January 12th. He's had top power play deployment for the 3 games prior to Tuesday. I had not seen power play at the time of recording for Buffalo. The 5 shots leaves a bit to be desired in that time, but Ostlund is basically unowned in Yahoo, so he might be a very interesting ad in deep leagues. But remember, Buffalo's Thursday, Saturday for the remainder of this week, and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule next week is not ideal. So he may not be someone who is adding a bunch of extra games for you, as Elon always likes to suggest on Matchup Maximizer. Make sure that you have checked out your own schedule before you go ahead and make any decisions. This game also saw the return of Alex Lyon. Little to report except 2 goals against on 20 shots through 2 periods as of this recording. Of course, Lyon was on a really nice hot streak with 6 wins and 5 quality starts in 6 games before he suffered that late December injury. And I imagine owners are excited to have him back to play. let's move on. Another young player who has made an impact here, Justin Hryckowian, with another 3 points. The Dallas forward, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 shots through 2 periods against Boston, breaks a streak of 10 games with just 1 goal. Exciting, but not a guy to necessarily move on, like I would say Ostlund might be, and Helenius might be in a super deep league. You know, if I'm listing these 3 guys, I'm going to have Hryckowian at the bottom of that list. That would be the one that starts Hryck, in case you're wondering why you don't see anybody with RITZ to start his name there. I know that we've talked about him a couple times on the various shows, but just as a reminder, Dallas does have a pretty light Thursday, Friday schedule remaining this week, but they are a standard Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. I would say, like I said, just a very deep pick, maybe a pick for fun, but not necessarily one to jump on. Not as interesting, I would say, as the Buffalo guys. And then we also got some interesting news out of Toronto. Not necessarily as big of a headline, but certainly interesting to keep in mind. So we've got some updates on Stolarz as well as Knies and Nylander, a bit of a non-update for Nylander. Anthony Stolarz has been assigned to the AHL for a conditioning stint. Of course, he's been out since November 11th with an upper body injury. We did not get an update from Craig Berube about how long Stolarz could expect to be on this conditioning stint, but I would expect a game or 2 at least. Overall, Stolarz is 6-5-1 with a 3.51 goals against average and .884 save percentage in 13 games this season. I do think we have seen a better side of Toronto since some of those October, November games that Stolarz was part of. So hopefully he can cash in on a little bit of that better play when he gets back. Again, there's no major action to take on this. This is a wait-and-see situation, but Joseph Woll has really struggled lately. 2 really bad starts in his last 2 outings, 6 goals against in a 6-5 overtime loss against Utah, and 5 goals against in 2 periods against Minnesota on Monday. Dennis Hildeby has been better with 2 wins and 2 quality starts in his last 3 starts. But as he's waiver exempt, he is likely to be sent down when Stolarz is activated. Berube didn't give any hints about who would start against the Red Wings, but if it's based on recent performance, I would say you should put Hildeby in, especially if he's going to be sent down relatively soon. But that's another one that you'll want to check game day tweets. As far as some minor updates on Knies and Nylander, Knies has missed a few practices due to injury, taking some maintenance days. They said that he was likely to play against the Red Wings on Wednesday, but he's definitely battling this injury. He gave an interview where basically said, he's just going to try and hack it through to the Olympic break, and that it is a tough situation, not his exact words, but I know Brian wouldn't like me quoting him directly here, but it's a tough situation, and he's just going day by day and trying to play as best as he can when he's out there. So trying to play through that injury may damage his effectiveness somewhat, and it has, we've seen him taken off that top line in favor of players like Domi and McMahon. So something to keep an eye on, maybe something to consider if you've got a full schedule and you need to bench someone. Maybe Knies is not a bad choice there. The team has said there's no timeline for Nylander's return. He was selected to represent Sweden in the Olympics. Now that's questionable. So we will continue, obviously, to keep an eye. Basically, he is progressing, but we don't know exactly what progressing means. Hopefully he will be back sooner rather than later. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk some more injuries and outjuries, and then those 2 hot streaks and a cold streak. You're listening to Short Shifts.
Every yard, every sack, every interception, and every touchdown with Pick 6, DraftKings' newest game, every snap can turn into big-time payout. This isn't just watching the game, this is playing to win. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on 2 or more player stats. The better your picks, the bigger your payout. It's that simple. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in Pick 6 credits with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. You know the game, now make it pay. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Make the call, ride the upside in partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus award is non-withdrawable. Pick Six credits expire in 14 days. Terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer.
Hey guys, finding the perfect gift for the food lover in your life is easy. Thanks to Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships America's most iconic foods straight from world-famous restaurants right to your door. So if you want to treat someone to Joe's Stone Crab from Miami, Franklin Barbecue from Texas, or desserts from famous foodies like Ina Garten or Martha Stewart, Goldbelly has you covered. Just go to goldbelly.com and for a limited time, get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's promo code GIFT.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. Like I mentioned, it's a period of time where you got to be ready for some quick changes, just some quick updates on some players who were scratched or who were sick, if you were wondering why they may have been out of the lineup. We have Mikko Rantanen out ill. Val Nuchushkin was out for Colorado's Monday game because he was involved in a car accident on the way. And though he probably, health-wise was fine to play, maybe a little shaken up given the night off, went to IR and right off very quickly. Elvis Merzlikins, as I mentioned, left the game sick today. And then Igor Chernyshov was a scratch for the Sharks today. They said it had nothing to do with his play, just kind of part of the player development. I think that Warsofsky and Co. have probably earned a little bit of benefit of the doubt there, but probably a disappointment for Chernyshov owners after he had a 2-assist game previously. Speaking of players who are out for short periods of time or maybe returning soon, we did get a lot of updates about players who are not quite ready to return, but some interesting ones to keep an eye on down the line anyway. Lots of wait-and-see players approaching a return. Since Monday, we've seen Victor Hedman, as well as some fantasy irrelevant injured Lightning players skating but not ready. Patrick Laine skated in a regular jersey for the Habs as he continues his recovery. Erik Karlsson skated and is quote-unquote progressing, which is good news because Chris Letang is now out day-to-day with an upper body injury. I don't think I would be running to grab any of the Pitt defensemen. Either Karlsson or Letang could potentially be back relatively quickly. And I don't have a ton of confidence in whoever gets that power play QB slot if it's not going to be Letang or Karlsson. So I would just sort of avoid the Pittsburgh defense entirely until the regulars get back. Some big outjury news. Kirby Dach made his way back into the lineup for Montreal. He was back to playing line 1 with Caulfield and Suzuki, as well as taking power play 2. This knocks Texier out of both spots. After an 8-point outburst in 4 games in the second week of January, Alexander Texier was on some radars, but he's on a 3-game pointless streak and didn't suit up Tuesday at all with a day-to-day ailment of some kind. I think that you are more than welcome to stash him if you think you might be able to bring him back and sneak in a game. But I think certainly with Dach eating up his advantageous deployment, Texier should be not long for your roster if he's there at all. In other big injury news involving players with siblings, yes, that's the segue I have chosen. We saw Luke Hughes go down with an injury. Sheldon Keefe told us today that it will take a bit to know the extent of Hughes' injury. He's not going to play for the remainder of the road trip, which extends to January 25th in Seattle, and that's at least that long. Frank Saravalli suggested that it may have been a dislocated shoulder when Hughes was injured in the second period against Calgary and did not return. However, we haven't heard any official news, so take that as the rumor that it is. In the meantime, Dougie Hamilton got the lion's share of the approximately 1 minute of power play time they had in that game, with Nemitz getting power play 2 time. We're recording before New Jersey versus Edmonton drops the puck, so I can't say for sure what it's going to look like today. Again, take a look at game day tweets. I'm always a little skeptical that the in-game adjustment is going to be the same as what you see the next game. Sometimes that's just making a quick change while you have the opportunity. So again, I think it'll be worthwhile to see how things, actually looked like they were going. This could be a good opportunity, I think, for Hamilton to, have an opportunity with better deployment to maybe put the shine on him a bit to facilitate a trade. And Nemec could be a good option if and when Hamilton gets sent away, or alternatively, if he gets that power play QB position. In the meantime, Johnny Kovacevic was called up. I don't think anyone but Nemec probably is available and of any interest, and I think that's going to be deeper leagues for now unless we see Nemec take the power play 1 spot. One other little bit of injury news for us here. Justin Sourdif returned for Washington, back in his spot centering Ryan Leonard and Connor McMichael, that line that had so much success early in that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday week. That made Sourdif a little bit of a folk hero in that moment. I mentioned after that game that I thought we probably had already seen the best of what Sourdif has to offer in terms of fantasy relevance. Season total, 9 goals and 10 assists. So I wouldn't rush out to see the changing lines. We do have Wilson and PLD, both who are out, who could come back and push him further down the lineup. I think that everyone who has shares of Washington players are anxiously looking forward to Tom Wilson's return. As a number of people, Elon and Trev both, I believe, have said in various places around the Keeping Karlsson community, Washington just doesn't look like Washington without Tom Wilson. As someone who has Logan Thompson not playing the best hockey of his season right now, I think getting Wilson back might have a positive impact for him, even defensively there. And then I wanted to talk about some hot and cold streaks. A huge hot streak right now. Vladimir Tarasenko, absolutely on fire right now with a bunch of missing Minnesota players. Joel Eriksson-Ek, Johansson, Boldy, all still missing time. Brodin and Bogosian, although not fantasy relevant, are also not ready to return. Tank is up to 5 goals, 3 assists, 15 shots over the last 3 and most of a 4th game. That game had not quite wrapped up at the time recording started. He's just loving life on the top power play, taking feeds from Kaprizov. He's obviously not going to shoot 30% forever, but it's a really great spot to occupy while these other players are all recovering. He's just 16% owned on Yahoo and only 75% in the cupful. So there are opportunities to go add him. I think this is my pause the pod moment. I'm going to go ahead and shoot my shot and say, if he's available in your league, you should go out and add Vlad Tarasenko now while you can before he gets snapped up for that next game. And so to go along with our pause the pod hot streak, sometimes it's worthwhile to include a permission to drop there in as well. And I was looking at a player who is surprisingly highly owned, both in the cupful and across Yahoo, even though he's seen a bit of a downward trend lately, the way that I think it should be going. But I think it's time to cut bait on this particular player. I'm talking about Matvei Michkov. He has just 2 goals on his last 43 shots over 23 games. The first thing that maybe should stand out is that we are seeing an average of fewer than 2 shots a game. That should be highly concerning. We like Michkov when he is pouring shots on the net to the tune of at least 2 and up to 3 or even 4. That's when he was finding the most success, especially early last season, and then kind of a bit of a renaissance late. But he was getting better deployment at those times. Right now, he is at even strength with Sean Couturier and Denver Barkey playing on power play 2. And the expected numbers, unfortunately, don't show a ton of room for him to improve. They pretty much are right about where they would be expected for him, given his 5v5 and power play usage. He has seen a drop in that power play usage and in his power play participation. He is getting left out of about 20% of goals that maybe he would have pointed on previously. He's also getting half his assists from secondary assists, which is up about 8% from last year. That's a little less reliable, so he may lose some points there as well, which is concerning. He's 86% rostered in Cupful and 44% on Yahoo. Like I said, both with those downward trends. But I'm betting that there are teams out there who are holding a Michkov holding out hope for him to improve, but we're now on a second coach that really hasn't found a way to utilize him maybe in the way that he might be best utilized or maybe prefers to be utilized. And I think that's been holding him back. I'd love to see him get a fresh start somewhere. But if you are holding Michkov right now, I think there are lesser owned players like Eeli Tolvanen or Max Domi or even Ethan Frank in Washington who are having more success right now, who might be a more interesting opportunity. Last but not least, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Alexander Carrier. He is on quite the streak. 4 goals, 3 assists, 11 shots, and 26 blocks over the last 9 games. The shots have been super inconsistent. We've seen totals as high as 5 and several games down at 0. But he's scoring right now. He's giving a ton of blocks for category leagues or points leagues where they are valued. If you are looking to fill in a defender, for instance, I dropped Klingberg last week because he has not been playing on that top power play. I'm not super interested in Orlov on that top power play either. I was kicking myself because I wished I had taken Carrier for today. I did a goalie spot start instead, but he had a goal and then he had an assist. I think the assist ultimately was taken away. That's what I have, at least among the numbers that I listed for you before. But a really interesting option, making some things happen on defense. Of course, 4 shots on 11 goals is not very replicable, but you gotta, strike while the iron is hot. And right now, Alexander Carrier is hot. And if you need a defenseman to fill in for a few games, you could do a lot worse than a guy who is having some nice success there. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me as I took this little solo skate. I hope it was informative for you. Hopefully it wasn't just too much of my voice droning on and on. If you have any feedback or suggestions, please feel free to reach out, especially among the patrons, easiest to get at me on the Discord. But yeah, if you enjoyed the show, please consider joining the Keeping Karlsson Patreon group at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Super supporters receive ad-free episodes, and all patrons can interact with Brian, Elon, the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. You can also get in the queue to take over a cupful team that may have lost its manager. Obviously, it's a very active, very competitive league, but when you have 700 plus teams on it, you're going to have some people who drop out. It's a great way to get some practice before thinking about joining the league full-time next fall. So give it some consideration. I mentioned several times also, check out Game Day Tweets.com to get all the best info from X. Great sources vetted by Elon and Shams. Always, relying on the best possible sources. Please check out that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Natural Stat Trick, and today for me, a little bit of Elite Prospects as well. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach, and until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.
Hey guys, finding the perfect gift for the food lover in your life is easy. Thanks to Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships America's most iconic foods straight from world-famous restaurants right to your door. So if you want to treat someone to Joe's Stone Crab from Miami, Franklin Barbecue from Texas, or desserts from famous foodies like Ina Garten or Martha Stewart, Goldbelly has you covered. Just go to goldbelly.com and for a limited time, get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's promo code GIFT.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.